Hi, this is Mike from the Substream, and this is Rajo from the Substream, and we've been asked to do a follow-up video here in the Film Lab to a video that we made during the Hot Docs Film Festival when we were visited by Vanessa, the interview fairy, who taught us how to ask the best, most smartest questions of our interview subjects. And today we're going to talk about some really easy, really quick, really cheap technical tips and tricks that you can use to get the best, most interesting, impactful shots out of your sit-down interviews. So here again is Rajo, the 1,734th most handsome man in the city of Toronto. Rajo?
Thanks, Mike. As the 1,734th most handsome man in Toronto, I am totally compelling to Mike, which is why he wants to do an interview with me. Now, thanks to Vanessa, the interview fairy, Mike's got a list of questions, super smart questions, already written out. And all that's left for him to worry about are the different aspects of the mise en scène, the lighting, composition, and the setting. Now, in terms of lighting, you can go in a million different directions and try out a bunch of different things. Like, for instance, Rembrandt lighting, which we did a video on before, and there's a link to it down below. Rembrandt lighting looks great, and it's fairly easy to produce or to approximate. Jesus. But it can be really harsh and maybe not suitable for an interview because maybe you don't want the harsh light to accentuate someone's wrinkles and creases in their forehead. Mike?
Yeah, so that's where diffusing your light comes in. We're going to be doing a whole nother series of videos on this later on, but for now, suffice it to say that if you want to flatter your subject, which unless you're interviewing a serial killer, you probably do, one of the easiest ways to do that is diffuse your light source. And the easiest way to do that is with this stuff, which is called diffusion. And it's available by the sheet or by the roll at photo supply stores. And all you really have to do is stick it up in front of your light source like so. And it softens the light and spreads it out. And it'll flatter your subject really well. It's also flexible and it's cheap, so you can clothespin it to a household lamp if that's what you're shooting with. Real pros, when they're doing interviews, often use these lamps called kinos. That's not what this is. This is just a cheap tungsten light. And what kinos are is 4 or 8 foot long banks of fluorescent tubes that give a really nice soft light for interviews. But they're hard to get a hold of and they're really expensive and they're kind of involved to use. So what you can do is spend $10 and make your own diffused light source using a Chinese lantern. Just get one of these, stick a strong bulb inside, and voila, you've basically got a big ball of soft, diffused light. It's hard to get a lot of light out of them though, so you'll probably have to use more than one. But that's okay, because they're cheap.
Okay, so moving on. The next thing for you to consider is composition and framing. Now, most interviews, whether they're formal or informal, are composed of 2 people talking to one another. There's me, the subject, on camera, and sitting across from me, but off camera, is the director or the host person asking me questions. Now, if you're going to shoot this way with the person looking off camera, it's important to consider 3 very easy to remember but very important tips. The first is nose room. When you're composing your shot, you want to leave more space in front of the person's nose than not. It all started when I won second prize in a beauty contest. The prize was $10. Nice. Or, it's really hard being this handsome. Some days I don't even leave my house. The second thing you need to remember is headroom. Your subject does not need any space above their head. It just, trust me, it ends up looking weird. What you should do is compose your shot so that your subject's eyes are about 2/3 of the way up the frame. Remember your rule of thirds here. Remember, if you have to cut off the top of someone's head, that is fine. It may seem counterintuitive, but trust me, it looks normal, it looks fine. Next time you watch TV, watch out for shots like this. You'll see them all the time. But what's not fine is cutting off someone's chin. And that's to do with a third tip, which is this. Compose so that your subject isn't breaking frame all the time while they're talking. And remember to keep an eye on their hands and shoot in a way so that the hands aren't popping in and out of frame all the time, because it's really distracting.
The last tip is this. Spend as much time thinking about the background of your interviews as you do about the foreground or the subjects in them. Because the environment that you shoot your interviews in will say about as much about your subject as their own mouth would do with the words. And if you're in a location where all of the backgrounds are ugly or distracting or just not what you want in your movie, you can build for $10 what grips spend hundreds on, even though theirs are a lot nicer than this. This is a black background made out of 5 yards of cheap fabric from a fabric store, and it's strung across a couple of spare stands. Black background might not say much about your interviewee, but it will lend what they say a certain gravitas. So that's all. Remember, diffuse your light, watch your nose room, your head room, and don't let your subject break the frame with their hands when they're talking about the thing in the do. And always pay attention to your background and be creative. Thanks. That's all. See you again soon.